Hello, and welcome to I Am Dad Podcast with your fatherhood authority, Kenneth Braswell. 30 minutes of wisdom, information, resources, and nugget on your fatherhood journey. Or maybe you're just curious and want to hear some real talk about fatherhood, family, and the minds of men. Well, guess what? We got you too. Sit back, grab your pad and pen, and maybe even bring a little something to sip on. Enjoy 30 straight minutes of fatherhood, family, and fun with the fatherhood authority, Kenneth Braswell.
Welcome to another exciting episode of I Am Dad Podcast. Today, we are thrilled to have with us the incredibly talented and versatile Jason Lowder. He's an actor, teacher, coach, mentor, and a true lover of life. Jason's career is a testament to his dedication and passion for storytelling, both on and off the screen. He's a native of Atlanta, Georgia. Jason has graced the stage in over 30 productions since 2009, collaborating with some of the most esteemed directors and playhouses in the region. His journey as a storyteller extends beyond the stage, having worked for more than 40 independent projects, including full-length features, shorts, and web series. Jason's talent has led him to notable roles on television, including guest appearances on the CW's Black Lightning as Frank Two Bits Tanner, and on Hulu's Wu-Tang, an American Saga, one of my favorites, as Jamaican Drug Lord CRESSY. Most recently, you could catch Jason on NCIS L.A. and The Wonder Years, but you know him best probably for his appearances in season 2 of BMF, STARZ BMF as REMI Ransom. Beyond his on-screen accomplishments, Jason has inspired thousands as Babatunde, the griot. That's where I met him, cultivating audiences with his storytelling. His commitment to nurturing young talent is evident in his roles and as an acting coach at Nova House and a youth acting instructor with AGI Entertainment. Jason's desire to tell compelling stories through a revolutionary lens continues to drive him, and his work is both touching, moving, and inspiring. This year alone, you can look forward to seeing him in several films and streaming platforms, including The Past, Scheme Queens, Gerald's Hands, Abiding, PIGS, Preaching Lies, Pretty for a Big Girl. At first, I thought that said Petty. Pretty for a Big Girl, Vice Squad, and Sinister Minister. Man, this brother is so dope. Jason, how you doing, sir?
Man, salute, Brother Ken. I appreciate you, man. I'm blessed, bro. I'm truly blessed, man.
Man,
Petty, that's good.
Yo, I met this dude when I came into Atlanta, doing some work in the community. I was down in Clayton County for a little fatherhood event they had, and this cat was doing this storytelling with these children. And he was I thought he was African. And I'm standing back in the background. I'm like, yo, this dude is hot, man. I got to get him in my space so he could do some stuff for my kids. And then when we started talking, he started talking. You from St. Louis, right?
No, I'm from Atlanta. I'm born and raised
here.
You
born and raised in Atlanta. But no,
yes,
I don't know why I joked about St. Louis. Because I had just finished talking to a boy of mine who also has an accent. And I'm like, yo, dude, why you keep speaking with that accent knowing you from St. Louis? That's why I laughed about it when you did it. Man, you are incredible, brother. I'm enjoying your journey. When I saw you in the airport, man, it was such a blessing seeing you because you touched my heart. Because I love seeing brilliance in motion. I love seeing brilliance in motion, man. And you are that. There's so much out there that is going to cross your pathways. And I see you as somebody who is ready for opportunity when it shows up. And that's one of the tricks of life, right? A lot of times when opportunities show up for us, we're not ready. But man, brother, you are ready, ready, ready. I love you, man. I love you.
All right, let's
get started. Keep your eyes off me. Keep your eyes on the road. So listen,
yes, sir.
With each I Am Dad podcast, we start off with this simple question because I think it sets the stage for the conversation. Most people don't know I'm getting ready to ask this, but the reason that I ask it is so I catch them off guard and they have to think about it a little bit and not think about how they're going to tell me. Just tell me. And the question is, tell me your daddy's story.
Wow, man. Golly. So my father, man, he's my role model. And so, I really like have kind of crafted my journey as a male, as a black man, like based on how I saw him and and how he raised us and how he maneuvered in life. So yeah, my dad has been very instrumental in my life to this day. Like I call my dad for everything. I call him up and be like, "Hey, Daddy, I'm trying to get these new tires, but they said that I need these Michelins, but he's like, no, go somewhere else. They got better tires at another place. Get them for the same price. Woo. So my dad, man, he has been he's been my champion, man. He's been my, like I said, my idol. And I know that I'm a better human becoming because of who he is. And so he coached, my dad coached my little brother's baseball team. He coached our basketball team, so he's just been present, man, my whole life, and just there to offer like these dope insights and these amazing, like, just we've had some great moments, man. My dad gave me the book, the autobiography of Malcolm X. He gave me that when I was in high school, man. I hated reading.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first book. That was the first book that I ever read, all the way through. So just his wisdom, man, and his experience in life, I've learned watching, and I've also learned by asking questions. And so, man, our relationship is super solid. And he broke my heart at one time, but we healed from that. And yeah, man, it's just, I think he's shown me that the human journey is very, it's intricate and is layered. So yeah, man,
that's dope. I love people to tell their daddy story because it tells us a lot about you. It tells us a lot about how you have crafted your own, characteristics and how you move along in life. But the second thing that I also like to hear the story of is I wonder whether or not you thought you would be where you are now. But what I really like to know is the journey too. Like, talk to me about the journey into your passion.
Wow. So I'm not sure if you know this, Kenneth, but I taught elementary school for 17 years, right? And so my mom, she comes from a household of teachers. She didn't teach per se, but education was very, very important in our house. So like knowing that, that was my upbringing. Like, you're going to go to college, you're going to continue your education, right? So doing that and going to Georgia Southern University, I was also in a rap group at the same time. So
we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that.
We're gonna get to that, right? So there was a point where I was teaching and rapping, teaching in the daytime, going out rapping at night. You know what I'm saying? And so that was a very, like, it was a dope time in my life. And I also was unsure because I said, man, when acting found me, it literally found me out of the blue. And so I fell in love with the craft, and I was like, man, I love acting and I love teaching. So once I had to come to a kind of a crossroads, and my teaching, my tenure had kind of like was up, and they were going to renew my contract. They decided not to renew my contract. And so I asked the principal, I said, man, can you have two passions? And she said, of course you can. And I was like, boom, there it is. So she said, go pursue your acting because that's what you love it. And we see that you love it. So we're going to push you out. And so that was God's way of saying, you know what? Go pursue this, because you're not going to do it any other way. This is the only way I can show you. and that was it.
Yeah, I believe that you only have one passion, but you can have multiple inspirations, right? And so
Okay.
you can have the inspiration to teach and the inspiration to act, and both of those fulfill
Yes.
your passion, right? I think sometimes people get caught up and they step off a track from an inspiration,
Yeah.
not understanding that that particular inspiration may just be the breadcrumb to your next inspiration. And the next
Wow.
inspiration is your breadcrumb to your next inspiration. But you never off track of your passion because God aligns your inspirations, right? And
Woo.
so when
Wow.
you're inspired by something, it doesn't feel like work, right? And you
Bam.
could do multiple things that don't feel like work. Like I always tell people who say they're retired and they're like, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do in my life. I'm like, you know what? You can retire from your vocation, but you can't retire from your calling.
Woo. Woo. Bro. Oh man, that's a bar. That's a bar. Yeah.
So listen, I
Yeah.
love talking to folks from Atlanta. I'm a Southern boy by
Yes.
soul, city boy by raising, and so I still got a
Yes.
country heart. But that Brooklyn in me don't. That Brooklyn in me never leave. And so what I love about the South, though, is the spirit of the South. And I have
Yes, sir.
always been intrigued by Atlanta. I'm always intrigued when I talk to people who were born and raised here in Atlanta, and always like to get their
Yeah.
perspective with respect to how they view Atlanta now. But more importantly, tell me about old school Atlanta from your perspective.
Wow, man, I'm old school Atlanta. It's its own like country. I feel like we had it, we were our own country because, I mean, you know, I grew up in College Park, and so that in and of itself was its own little entity in space. And I feel like Atlanta has different almost like New York. You got your Brooklyn, you got your Harlem, you got your Queens, you got so those are different like I guess you call them boroughs, if you will.
Yeah.
Atlanta kind of has the same thing. College Park, East Point, Decatur. So you have your different boroughs per se. Yes, and I believe it's always been connected. They've always been connected. Like I think someone might say, well, yeah, man, I grew up in College Park, but I was also in East Point. I was also in, I would go make some waves in Decatur. I would make some waves, and so I think that Atlanta pre Olympics, man, it was such a rich, beautiful space, man. And I think there's so many stories that can be told about how everybody we were all like connected. We were all for the birth, the beauty of the city. And I think after after the Olympics, it was a little different. Things kind of
Right.
changed a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And of course, it's all love. It's all love. But there was a huge shift because, I think that I'm always one for welcoming change, and I think change is sometimes hard. It is difficult. It can be difficult. So I think a lot of people in the city kind of face that, and unfortunately, there were some things that were done to people who lived in the city that, for the purposes of the Olympics or the Super Bowl, or people were displaced, and that's the only hard part that we had. That's a difficult part of it. But yeah, man, Atlanta. It was a party city, You come to Atlanta, you come to 112, you go to Vision, you go to Magic City. It was like we were known. Atlanta was known for for that. But at the same time, the music really blossomed, and I mean Atlanta also is historic. I mean Martin Luther King, Andrew Young, Maynard Jackson. Like, it's so many rich stories that we have here in the city that historically, Atlanta is the gateway to the South.
Yeah. I always describe it as the cradle of black people.
Yeah, the
It's the
cradle of
cradle of
wow.
black people. Like the South
Yeah,
in general. The South in
in general.
general is the
Yeah,
cradle of black people.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's why I love being in the mix of it. When I was in New York, I always had to explain why I wanted to work with black people. Why you not working with this person? Why you not working with this person? And when I came to Atlanta, I was like, yo, this is blackety black black. And I ain't got to explain because it is what it is. I remember a
That's
friend
right.
of mine, Jason, moved to Atlanta some 20 years ago. And when he
Yeah,
got down here, he called me and he was like, yo, Ken, yo, this is nice, man. It was back then it was the joint, right? Yo, this spot,
yeah.
the joint. I was like, what you like about it? He's like, man, last night I was watching the news. And he said, and I never watch the news, but you always watch the news to get a beat of the city and what people are paying attention to, right? So he said
Right.
there was a fire in a house. And he said the firemen were black. He said the paramedics were black, the police was black, the people outside was black, the news people was black, the people being interviewed was black, and the people burning up was black. He was like, it was just black all over. He said it was black from the rooter to the tutor. I was like,
To the
yo.
yeah. That's real.
I was like, that's crazy. Now,
Yeah.
talk to me about Unknown Seeds because I'm always into, I'm a rap baby. So I was born in the 70s, but I grew up in the 80s. So I remember the first time I heard Rapping's Delight. The first time I remember where I was, when I heard it. I remember thinking to myself when we heard it, me and my boys in Brooklyn, New York, heard it come on the radio, and we thought somebody was playing a tape because before radio played rap music, everybody had their cassette tapes, right, doing their little raps in their house. And we was like, yo, that's dope. We was like, wait a minute, that's on the radio? WBLS in New York City. That's the first time I heard Rapper's Delight. And so whenever somebody is I think my alternate calling was to be a rapper. I think he just put me in the entertainment space because I was a radio disc jockey and DJ for like almost 20, 25 years of my life. And so I was always close to music, close to entertainers, close to those people, and always felt like, yo, I could grab that mic and do that, but nah, that's your thing. Talk to me about how you got into Unknown Seeds and what were you trying to say?
Wow, so Kenneth, that's dope, man, and I feel like I'm a child of hip hop as well. Yeah, man, I was playing basketball and I was hooping in '90. Like I thought I was gonna go to the NBA. Like my mom, she poured into us. She was like, hey, you're gonna go to all the camps. So I went to the Georgia Tech basketball camp with Bobby Crimmins. I went to the Dominique Wilkins basketball camp with Mike Fratello. You know what I'm saying? So I was going to all the camps, hooping, playing it up. Played high school ball. Well, of course, played rec. Played high school. Got cut my senior year of high school. I was like, wow. The coach decided it was a new coach. He decided to go a different direction with the team. And I was like, all right. So I also knew that I loved to write. And I would always listen to lyrics. And I would write the other, Jazzy Jeff, our Fresh Prince, I would write his lyrics. LL Cool J, I would write his lyrics. And so I said, man, I can write too. So I started writing and I said, you know what? I can be a rapper. I feel like I have a gift. I'm good at this. So I got some of the other guys in my neighborhood. And I said, hey man, we're gonna make a rap group. And another guy was like, well, my stepdad, he has a studio in our basement. I was like, yo, that's it. We want to record an album. So man, we talked to him. I remember Jamie. We talked to him and he was like, hey man, let's record something. We'll see what it does. So I was writing everybody's lyrics. And the name of the group I came up with was called Future Black Inspirations, FBI. That was the name of the group, Future Black Inspirations. So we recorded, some songs. He took us to the different showcases, Sharon Showcase. We were doing different performing for ABC, performing with Crisscross. We were doing all that. And then I met a friend of mine in high school. She was like, hey, I rap too. So I said, yo, I can bring you into the group. So we brought her into the group, changed the name of the group. I said, yo, we're going to be called Understatement now. I'm still writing everybody's rhymes. And so in high school, we had a talent show. Man, we did the talent show. We blew up from there. So it was time to graduate. And so we had to figure out, okay, are we going to stay in Atlanta or are we going to go to somewhere else? So we all decided, me and her and a couple of other guys, from high school, we decided to go to Georgia Southern University. And Georgia Southern, that's when my cousin, he was already there. So he also was in a group, a rap group in Miami where he was from, but he was like, man, I'm going solo. So he decided to go solo. And so we were like, yo, we can form a group together. So we decided to make, we formed our little group. Mm-hmm. And then we had a talent show at Georgia Southern. We performed, and another group kind of was like, yo, we want to battle y'all because y'all think, it was like, it was kind of like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? So it was a little battle. We had a little battle going on. And after the battle, we were like, yo, we all kind of got our styles kind of like are similar. We got some similar energy. So then we formed together that group, and they were already called Unknown Seeds. So my cousin, myself, and the young lady her name is Kelly, we all joined Unknown Seeds. Mm-hmm. And so the new Unknown Seeds was birthed. So it was a group, it was 6 of us. And man, we were right. Our music was, we call it conscious crunk. Gotcha. Because we were talking about so many like different political issues. We were talking about social issues, but we wanted to add that crunk energy to it, you know what I'm saying? So I think that kind of like set us apart a little bit from other groups. And then once we were performing at Georgia Southern, we did a couple of shows. We opened for Outkast, opened for 112. Wow. It had it was pretty dope. Mm-hmm. And then we, of course, time to graduate. So we had all transitioned to Atlanta. And then in Atlanta, that's when we met these other groups. And my homeboy Quam Scott, he was in Atlanta before we were. And so he was kind of pushing Unknown Seeds. And then he found this guy named Akon.
Oh, wow.
and Akon was doing music, and he was like, yo, and then Akon's cousin was also a producer. So he was like, yo, I'm gonna put you guys with him. And so that's when we kind of got with a couple of other groups that are already formed, and we said we ought to form a mega group, and the mega group was called the Cult of Icon. So it was 5 groups in that group, and we just took over the Atlanta underground market. Like we took over the Atlanta underground scene, performing at Yin Yang Cafe, performing, which then became Apache Cafe. So we were performing there, doing shows, and when it was time, a major label wanted to sign us. And in that meeting, people kind of lost their cool, and money started getting talked, and then a fight broke out. Wow. And that kind of dissolved the whole opportunity for Culture Icon. Yeah. But Unknown Seeds, we kept going. We were like, yo, we gonna keep going. Wow. We gonna keep doing our thing. So we kind of kept it up for a while, and then of course people started having families, having babies.
Life be life.
Life be life, and everything kind of dissolved from there.
Wow, yeah. Akon, I absolutely love, man. He was on my playlist for almost like 3 to 4 years straight Akon every day, all day. We had a golf tournament year before last up in Milton, and found out that the house right outside going into the gate to the golf course is where he lives. He lives up there in Milton. And one day the gate was open when we came through. I was like, man, I feel like just driving up in the yard and be like, yo, I need to talk to holler at that cat, man. Because one of the things that I admire about him is what he's trying to do in Africa, because I go to Africa every year. The pandemic years I haven't gone. Last year I had the pleasure of going to both Ghana, which is where we go every year because we built a library in Ghana with Kwame Alexander. And last year I went back with Kwame and Jerry Craft and some other authors to Kenya. And so it was the first time I ever went to Kenya. So I got this like burning desire in my heart to like really do some things in Africa connected to literacy. And I know that he's doing some stuff around, ecosystems and preservations and things like that. So trying to attach what we're doing to what's going over there. But that leads me into, I want to skip a little bit because I was going to go into talking about Black Lightning, but because we're talking about rap groups and because you're talking about the way that Unknown Seeds was shaped up, working and playing in Wu-Tang probably was easy for you, right?
Oh man, you know what? So my character CRESSY, he was actually he was a fictional character based on the life of an actual person. That's what RZA told me when he when we talked. So how that came about was once again serendipitous. It was just, kind of once again the universe aligning and that divine alignment, So my girlfriend now, my queen, my partner, we were best friends when she moved to Atlanta. So she had access to these breakdowns for casting. And so she told me, hey, there's a role for Jamaican, and it's a new show. You should tell your manager about it. And I was like, yo. And so I gave it to my manager. He got me the audition, and she's a true thespian. And so she was taping my audition. And so she really pushed me to pushed me to get me to where I needed to be. And then like a week later, my manager was like, hey, they want to fly you out to New York because you booked the role. And I was like, whoa, oh my God. So that right there in and of itself was just kind of miraculous how that happened. And then when the RZA talked to me, he was like, hey, this CRESSY was the man of the guy. The real person was a man of very few words. So when you do talk, you got to make sure that your voice is like that. That you're saying something. So I was like, okay. And so, and he was like, man, he was really dark too. He was really dark. So whatever you got to do to get there, I was like, okay, yes sir, accepted. Yeah, man. So meeting RZA. Meeting Alex C, meeting the rest of the cast, it was beautiful, man, because I was like, yo, this is hip hop. And I told Method Man, I said, bro, I grew up off of y'all's music, man. You're like, y'all music influenced us. He was like, yo, you making me sound like I'm old. I'm saying, no. I'm just saying, like Wu-Tang Clan, yo,
right.
that album, you know what I'm saying? Into the 36 Chambers. He was like, no, I'm just messing with you. But he said, no, I appreciate that. I said, yo, Wu-Tang is forever.
Absolutely.
Wu-Tang is forever. So playing that role, man, it was like, wow, I couldn't believe it, Kenneth. I couldn't believe it, man. I was like, man, this is nothing but God, man.
Yeah, and I know when I heard that thing was first coming out, I was like, I don't care when these episodes are coming out. I'm watching this because again, I'm growing up in New York when this is developing, right? Because as it relates to the boroughs, Wu-Tang was Staten Island. And whenever you talked about rap in New York City, no one ever mentioned Staten Island. It was either Brooklyn or the Bronx, right? Manhattan wasn't even talked about when it comes to rap in Queens. Really wasn't talked about, with the exception of Run and LL and then 50 and a couple had the backdrop, but it was Brooklyn and the Bronx for a while. So when the Wu came, we was like, yo, who are these cats? Like, what are they doing? What's their storyline? And the genius of it, the genius of RZA was like, he knew that the lifeline in New York City at that time for black men and boys particularly was Kung Fu. And so to pull that thing into the chamber, now you got this, like we listening to that music and you hear the wah, 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 cling, cling. You hear the swords in the background.
The swords.
Everybody is like going crazy. And I was like, so when that came out, I absolutely loved that you guys told that story. That story is relevant to this craft. People should know that not only what they did from a musical point of view was groundbreaking, but from a business point of view, it was genius.
Genius. And I think that for me, like that story hopefully opened the eyes of up and coming artists, other artists who were like, yo, is that how he did it? And I even like, I want to say some artists that were out at that time probably mimicked that a little bit, like Master P. I feel like Master P was like, yo, we can work with Universal and Sony, and you gonna work with you. So
it was an and proposition, not an or. You know, he's like, we could do it all. We could do this and that and this and this and that. But the thing that I really love about him as an individual, I would love to talk to him, about how he was able to keep all of these brothers with these varying backgrounds and varying aspirations and varying thoughts, keeping them together, right? Because that's always the issue. The issue is you get a group together and life be lifing, and the next thing you know, it ain't got nothing to do with your talent. You're not together anymore because you moving on with life. And it seemed like for all of them, even though life was lifing, they all talked about whenever Wu come together, I'm coming together. They never ever talked about not being a group. Even today, when you talk to them and listen to them interview, their thing is, to your point, Wu-Tang is forever. Unlike the Temptations, right? Unlike the Temptations who said it ain't really work out for them that way. But I want to roll back to Black Lightning, because Black Lightning, I remember when that came out, it was kind of like, okay, because we had just come off of, I believe, Luke Cage, right?
Yes, sir.
And Black Lightning had just came up after that. And Black Lightning was a little different. It had more of a family orientation to it than Luke Cage had in there. Like when you were sitting in the midst of that, did it seem that it would be as popular as it became?
You know what? So, oddly enough, it was like, no, I had no idea. Once again, Kenneth, serendipity, right? So my agent reaches out to me and was like, hey, there's a new show. You have an audition for this one character. And I was like, oh, yes, dope. Nice. So I'm doing I do my due diligence as an actor. And I do my audition. And then maybe a couple of weeks later, my agent was like, hey, you didn't book that role, but they want to cast you for another role. And we don't know where it came from. And I'm like, yeah. And she said the name of the character is 2 Bits. And I was like, oh, okay. So then my agent goes and does her research, and she finds a comic book and she mails it to me. She said, hey, it looks like 2 Bits in the comic book. He's the brother-in-law for for Jefferson Pierce, Black Lightning. So your character marries his sister. And so now 2 Bits is the secret informant. So you have a plug to the streets. And so you get to tell him all the information. And I was like, yo, that's crazy. If they follow the comic book, this is about to be dope. Right. And so, and so my first day on set, I'm being directed by the infamous Mike Schultz, the director of Cooley High. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, yo, this is Mike Schultz. So man, I'm nervous. At the same time, I'm like, okay, I'm here for a reason. I'm here to do my work. And then when we do our first scene, and he's like, okay, I need this. And I'm like, oh yeah, yes sir. We go over it. He says, cut. That's not it. I'm like, oh. He said, okay, I need to be more like you're focused on him not coming into your pride. Like you are a lion, and you see another king lion coming in. So we want to see that. Okay, yes sir. We try it. He says, cut. That's not it. And I'm like, oh man, okay. And so the writer comes in and says, hey, no, we changed some of the lines. And then they have a conversation because Mike is like, why didn't y'all tell me? And so they pull off to a side conversation, and Cress, he comes up to me. He says, hey man, don't get in your head. I know what it's like. And I'm like, I know, man, bro. He said, no, you're here for a reason. You got the role for a reason. Focus on your objective and what you want out of the scene, and let's try it. Let's rehearse, me and you. I said, okay. So he and I go over it. Then they come back, and Mike Schultz is like, okay, we got it figured out. Let's just try this. Action. He's like, that's it. Cut. I got it. And I'm like, yo. So I tell Chris, I'm like, hey man, I owe you my life. He said, no, you don't. He said, man, I just pay it forward. Because as an actor, I know what it's like to get redirected and you get in your head. But he said, when you know why you're here, they'll figure it out. You still know why you're here. And I was like, oh, wow. So he said, next time you're on set, and so that's what I'm like. That's what it means to be number one on the call sheet, to be able to help another actor ground themselves and to lead the set. So I'm like, oh, that's why he's number one. That's what he's learning his journey. So man, that piece, and then talking to the creator, man. It was his name just golly, his name just released from my head. But Mara Brock Akil and Salim Akil, they are the creators. Like, so Salim, he created Black Lightning as a statement to say, you know what? The drug that was on the TV show was called green. It was called Green Light.
Yeah,
right?
I'm trying to remember what it was. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And so he was kind of like juxtaposing that with how, because the government, they brought green light into the community, and people were taking green light and getting these powers, right? And then dying. So he was saying, did the government bring in crack into the community and kind of shifted the entire trajectory of our community? And so he was kind of like, it was like a very interesting parallel he was showing. And so I was like, man, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And then with the family, he was showing how black families, a black family with superpowers, with a superhero black family. Oh man, that was such a beautiful story, man. Such a beautiful story, and how they go through their highs and their lows, because it was just beautifully told. And so, yeah, man, when the network said it was getting too black.
Listen, because the underpinning of that is that creatively we can tell our story, right? Whether it's in music, it's in dance, it's in theater, it's in acting, it's in inventing, right? We just find a way to tell our story, and you can't stop our stories. You can't stop our story from being told. And what I love about entertainment today, whether it is music, whether it's acting or whatever, there's an old African proverb that says, as long as the hunter is writing the story, the lion's story will never be told.
Facts. And
the atmosphere and environment right now is giving the chance for the lion's story to be told from the lion's perspective. And so when I see you, it's the thing that really like makes if I'm going to use a Mary reference, my baby jumps when I see you. It's just like when I was watching. So last night I was trying to get through the last season of Blacklist, which they tell me I'm going to be disappointed, but I'm like, don't tell me, let me just get through it. But I'm watching Blacklist yesterday, binging a little bit, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching. This dude comes up on there, and I'm like, "Yo, wait a minute! I know that dude. That's my man, Kevin West." And I'm like, I texted. I was like, "Yo, Kevin." I was like, "You were in Blacklist?" He's like, "Man, yeah, I was." I'm like, "Yo, this is crazy." So when I see how God has positioned my life, where I can be sitting there, getting in my own space. And I can see someone that I can literally touch again, living their brilliance. And I see it on there. It was like crazy, because I'm watching BMF again. Didn't know from the jump that you was on there. And when you came up on the screen, I jumped up out my chair and I was like, yo. And I was like, make sure he stays in. Every episode, I was like, nah, it can't happen. You gotta stay in. You gotta stay in. Like I was praying for you every episode. I didn't even know what the outcome was. Every episode was like, he gotta be back. Nah, this can't happen. They're not gonna do that to him. They're not gonna do that. He gonna make it all the way through. He gonna make it all the way through. And we gonna tell anybody what happened. But I was so glad to see you, man. Listen, talk to me about getting that part and how that felt for you to be a part of that power universe, man, because that thing is crafting storylines for us in a way that our stories haven't been told. Now, people can say that they're one side of our story, but when you look at all those stories in their totality, they're really telling the fullness of our stories, that you can't separate one side of our story from the other side of our story and not tell our whole truth. Right? It's almost like when I was watching The Godfather of Harlem, People's like, oh, wait a minute. Like you got Bumpy Johnson with the councilman, and then you got Malcolm X, and then you got wait a minute, whoa. People watching that's like, what are we doing right here? We're telling a story because we were family and we all brought different elements to the story. You may not agree with one of the elements, but the element is the element, right? So talk to me a little bit your experience in seeing that and being a part of that.
Oh man! So once again, Kenneth, I'm telling you, man, my whole I tell people this. My entire journey has been really serendipitous, and I'm truly grateful for the way it is being directed and divinely guided. You know what I'm saying? So so nevertheless, in 2000, I think it was like maybe 2000 and right before the pandemic. I sat down with a group of it would not even sat down. I was invited to a dinner because we were going to celebrate another actress that we know, a fellow writer. She was moving to L.A. and so we were all kind of there, just breaking bread with one another, having a great time. And one of the other writers was like, "Hey, Jason," she said, "Hey, listen, I love your work. I've seen you in Black Lightning, seen you in Wu-Tang. I love it. We gotta work one day." And I'm like, "Yo, absolutely, yo, let's put it into the atmosphere. Universe, you heard it. All right, you know, now here it is." And so, so like maybe fast forward a couple of years, man. After the pandemic, my agent sent me an audition for BMF, and my brother, he told me 2 years prior to this audition, he was like, "Hey man, this is new show on that's coming out. It's gonna be about the Black Mafia. It's gonna be about BMF." He said, "Hey man, I just feel like you're gonna be on that show, man. I really do." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah." And I hadn't gotten any audition for season 1, no auditions. So I'm like, it's not gonna happen. Or not that it's not gonna happen. I was just kind of like, all right, you know what? Maybe that's not for me. Cool. And so when season 2, when that audition came in, I was like, oh, dope. Okay. So it was for another character. So I auditioned. I put my audition in, did the work. Boom. My agent called me back about a week later. They were like, "Hey, you didn't get that role, but they want you for another role. We don't know where it came from, but this is the name of the character, REMI RANSOM." And I'm like, wow, yes, let's do it. She says, you know, it's gonna be a quick in, quick out. And I was like, hey, listen, let's go, let's do it. So I get the script. I see the name on the script. It's the young lady, Shaquela Mims, who told me, "Miss Jason, we're gonna work together one day." So I see her name. I'm like, "Yo, Shaquela." So I call her up. I'm like, "Yo, Shaquela, your name is on this script. I just got it." She was like, "Oh yeah, I pitched you for that role." And I told them Jason Louder can play that role, and that's why I wanted to play this role. I wrote the character for you. I was like, yo.
Wow.
I'm like, yo, I owe you my life. She said, "No, you don't. Just do the work. Let them know why I chose you." And I was like, say less. Yeah. Say less. So I literally poured myself into REMI RANSOM. And I pulled some stuff from my brother, from other family members who I know, from people who I grew up with. I pulled it because they said he's not a real character, but he is an amalgam of different people that lived in Techwood. And I'm like, I've seen him before. I know him. So I was able to craft who REMI RANSOM was, man. And I'm super grateful to this day because once again, 50 Cent, man, kudos to his brilliance. And then kudos to the whole writing. All the writers for BMF, like those writers, man, their writers' room is dope because then they start to say, hey, we're starting to write for your character now. Like we know how you move, we know some of the things how you speak. So they started writing for me. And to the showrunners, man, Heather and Randy Huggins, Heather was like, hey, if you feel like this is not something, this is not how Remy would say it, you're from Atlanta. So say it how you feel like somebody from Atlanta would say it. And I was like, bam, that part.
That was the thing I liked about it, I was going to ask you, so how comfortable was it for you that you were in Atlanta? Like you were home.
I was home, man. That was super. I was like, y'all have no idea. Y'all, because when we grew up in high school, we would see the big billboards that said BMF. The world is yours. Driving down 85 South, like, man, who? And then we would go to the clubs and see all these dudes pull up in these fancy cars and white T-shirts and just spending money. Like, I mean, like, yo, these cats is no joke. They all right, they the real deal. And so just growing up in that time frame, I'm like, man, y'all have no idea. I'm really telling the story that I grew up, this is the story that I grew up around. So that's kind of what it was. That's what it ended up being for me.
Yeah. And then I saw you, one of my favorite other dudes, I was watching him, and you popped up one day and I was like, this cat is just everywhere I am. Country Wayne skit, man. How did you end up in a Country Wayne skit? I love that cat, man. I love that dude. I love everything about Country Wayne.
Yo, same, man. He's such a giving individual, man, and he's changed the whole game up as far as content wise. He's shifted the game, and it's such a powerful, beautiful way, right? And he's making sure that his family, that his people eat, and I respect that so much. So that's pretty much how I came into the fold. Mike Bless, one of the actors, he's like, Mike. So Mike, he and I were on a panel together, and we had a great conversation after the panel. So we kind of stayed in communication. So he calls me up one day. He was like, "Yo, bro, I'm in these Country Wayne skits, and I got a role for you. And can you do it?" And I was like, "Yes, man." So he was like, "It's a part of my storyline. So just come through, and we're gonna play." And I was like, "All right, where's the script?" He said, "There is no script.
Right.
It's improv."
Right.
I was like, "Yo, this is crazy." So now Mike has his own storyline, and then D from the West Side,
right, he
has his own storyline. And so D called me up. D was like, "Hey, I need you in my storyline." And I'm like, "Okay, let's go." So it's been, and they called me earlier today to see if I was available, so I got to call them back.
Man, that's so dope. I was like, man, just because of his life, and what he's doing for his family and his kids. For me, it's like I need to get up with him because he's a perfect alignment for the work that I do, right? And so really want to talk to him about, this work around fatherhood and what we're doing here in Atlanta with Black men. And so at some point, I'm like, at one of these points, I'm gonna get this dude to get Fathers Incorporated in his skit somehow, when he's talking about baby daddies or something like that. And so, but nah, man, congratulations on all of that, man, all of that. I can't, but you know what? I'm listening to you tell these, what I call mini stories. And the theme that I'm getting out of all of them is that God makes room for your blessings. Your blessings, your talents will make room for you. And so you walk into those spaces thinking that you're supposed to get what they told you were going to get, and he's giving you what you supposed to have. Can be different, right? That's a total, and I think that's going to be for you all the way through. People are always going to be figuring out, how do we get this dude in? We just gotta, think about how you shift the room in that way, right? Because we always talk about that your presence shows up in the room long before you do. That's your presence showing up in the room before you even get there. That I'm going to set this room for you. When you get there, you're not going to have to be outside of you. You're going to be right in that space that you're supposed to be in, doing those things and telling these stories, man. You are a great storyteller. And that has now become part of your career. It doesn't look like you used to, look like it used to, right? In terms of storytelling, but just telling these stories beneath the surface, right? About all these other influential people that were part of those things. Because every time I saw Techwood, I think about Thomasville. I think about Thomasville because I've only been over there a few times, but every time I go over there, I was like, yo, that feel like how I felt when I went over to Tom, because I'm, from the city. I know what it feels like to get into communities. You could feel the environment change, depending on where you are. And it's like, I might be comfortable going through here, but I still got to be cautious about moving through here, right? It's not like they just gonna get me just because I'm there, but you still just can't walk up in there. And so I was wondering whether or not that was depiction of that side of town. over there because they felt so like that. But then as I began to move around Atlanta, there's like several areas around Atlanta
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
that really feel like that. So you coaching soccer, right?
Yeah.
And so you're
Yes.
working with kids now. What's compelling you to like really begin to kind of pour into our youth?
And so here's the thing, like, so I started teaching in 2000. And then I was at a private school called Romar Academy. That's who gave me my first opportunity to really teach. And in Romar, they had a soccer program there. And so I started coaching soccer and didn't know anything about soccer, nothing. And so I read a bunch of books and started watching soccer. And so that's how I was able to, teach, teach soccer, right? And I also played basketball. So I was like, yo, this looks like the triangle offense. So I was teaching from a basketball perspective, but I could still apply it to soccer, right? And so after I left Romar, I went to a private school called Imhotep Academy, another African-centered school. These are two African-centered schools and really prominent schools in Atlanta. And so, their soccer program was very preeminent. Everybody knew about Imhotep International Soccer. And so they were like, hey, you coached at Romar, you can coach here too. So I was like, okay, cool. So started coaching there. And then, my first season there was great, but then they decided to say, hey, you know what? We want to take the boys and put them on an all boys team because it was a co-ed team. And then the parents were like, well, what about the girls? And I was like, okay, what do we do? And so some of the parents was like, let's just make an all girls team. And I was like, okay. From there, we're like, you know what? Let's make an all girls club, an all girls soccer club. And that's what Diamonds and Pearls was birthed out of that.
Nice.
And so we started playing. First, we had to play co-ed teams, or we had to play teams with all boys. But I was like, that's what it is right now. And then eventually we got to the point to where we were finally finding other all-girls teams, and we can, compete against all-girls teams. And so my team that I started with, they were like 9 years. All those girls were 9 years old when we first started. And then by the time we were 16, we won the state championship. So
nice.
It was such a blessing, man. It was such a blessing. Yeah.
Two last things, very quick questions, so I can let you go.
Yes, sir.
What's your dream role?
I wanted to play Bob Marley, but I knew, and once it came out, I was like, okay. Yeah, Kingston. Shout out to Kingsley. You know what I'm saying? Mr. Adair. I was like, okay, got it. Yeah, he nailed it. He nailed it. So, I don't know if I haven't discovered what that looks like for me next. So, I do know that I want it to be something to where there's a hint of a science fiction and a hint of Afrofuturism and a hint of a comic. I want that to be all. That's the role that I'm looking forward to either being cast in or creating.
Okay. What does your self-care day look like when you're not doing this stuff and it's all about you today?
Ooh, man. Hey, listen, my queen, she put me up on facials. Boy, so, man, I was like, I see why y'all get these. Man, they put those cucumbers on my eyes. They put that facial scrub on my face. I was like, yo, I felt like my face felt like a full, I was like, do I look the same? I felt like I had a whole nother face on, bro. So
wow.
Definitely a face, a massage. I believe that massages are necessary, man. I think we need to stretch as well, but massages are necessary. So I try to do a massage at least once a month. I also get my nails and my toes done at least. Man, that pedicure and that manicure, I'm like, y'all, okay, women. Yeah, I see.
Y'all been trying to hold back. Y'all been holding back.
Y'all been trying to hold back, right?
Word. Yeah, my daughter's an esthetician, and so that's what she does. Her office is up. Her salon is up here in Sandy Springs, and so she loves it. She's done a couple of people as slide into her DM, Monique, and a couple of people that's like, I'm like, go ahead, girl, outside, do your thing. But the other thing you should think about too, and I'm thinking about, I actually literally just went to it because it just opened around the corner, is cryotherapy.
Somebody just told me about that. I'm going to do it. Cryotherapy.
Yeah, I'm like, and I went in, it's right in, because my office is in Dunwoody. Well, one of them, I have one here, and then the other one is downtown. But this one up here in the plaza, they just opened it a couple of weeks back. And so I went in there just today because I'm thinking my son plays AAU basketball as well.
Yes.
So he's ninth going into 10th. He made the varsity team as a freshman. Nice. And so he's got aspirations of going to Duke. We see how that works out because I'm going to need him to get a scholarship because I ain't breaking 100. It off like that right now.
Yes, sir.
But I went in and she was like, yeah, this is what it is. This is what it does. It gives you a jolt. It gives you this. You're in there for a few minutes. Once you do the first 30 minutes, you come back. You're in here no more than 10 minutes on follow-up visits, and it just does something to your body. It stimulates your healing properties and all that kind of stuff, and gives you, that jolt that people take that other stuff with. That literally just got to get that chill in your bloodstream, and it wakes your whole body up. So I'll let you know how it is, because I said when I take him, I was going to go in as well to see what it feels like. I'm not going to send him in there, and I don't know what it feels like.
Right.
And so we're going to go in together, so I can get a shock and really know what he's feeling when he's in there and what that looks like. Jason, man, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence today. May life continue to give you everything that your heart desires, man. And you know that if you got 1 million fans out there, you got 1,000,001. I'm your ride or die dude. I'm gonna be that cat in your background cheering you on and celebrating everything that God delivers for you in your life, bro. Thank you, man.
Received. And I thank you, Kenneth, for this platform, brother, because I was at a 5K walk yesterday called I Am Father. And that was in Stonecrest Mall. My homegirl just told me about it. They've been doing this for 10 years, a 5K walk for fathers, right? Wow. And I'm like, wow. So thank you for being a champion of fathers and of black, just fatherhood. Yeah. And so dads, we have to celebrate the dads, man. We got to celebrate our dads. And so I believe that it's necessary, and I want to continue to partner and work with you in whatever way I can. So we here.
Absolutely. And to my I Am Dad listeners, my I Am Dad podcast listeners, you know how I like to leave you. Always be kind to others as you're kind to yourself, or you might find yourself by yourself. Always shoot high for your goals, because even if you miss, you'll be amongst the stars. And as my good friend and mentor Art Mitchell used to always say to me, it's nice to be important, but it's much more important to be nice. Till next Sunday, peace out.
Peace out.
Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us. You've been listening to I Am Dad Podcast. We hope that you have been informed, encouraged you to think, or even inspired your heart for the love of dads. The conversation does not end here. Come back and join us next week. Same time, same place. Or you can continue the dialogue on our I Am Dad Facebook page. We also invite you to listen to past episodes, learn more about us, and keep up with special activities by visiting IamDadPodcast.com. That's IamDadPodcast.com. Until next time, I leave you with this reminder of manhood from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Because of this reminder, I will always understand that I am Dad, period.